Hi everyone, my name is Kayla Harris and I'm an archivist at the Marion Library at the University of Dayton, and I'm going to give a quick demo and talk about a tool called StoryMap Js. So StoryMap Js is a free tool to help you tell stories on the web that highlight the location of a series of events. So it was developed by Night Lab from Northwestern University, and they've also created several other tools that you may be familiar with, such as Timeline.js, which is something that I've seen a lot of cultural heritage institutions use. They also have a few other tools, such as Juxtapose and SoundSite. I haven't used those before, but like I said, I've seen a lot of institutions use Timeline. So this is StoryMap. So the first question that we were kind of asked to go over was, how do you use this tool? So I used it for an experiential learning project that I did with a colleague in the library and an English faculty member with an undergrad class of honors English 114. And so this experiential learning project was to make this digital walking tour of downtown Dayton. They were learning in the class about some of these issues of this specific section of Dayton. And so they were going to present both contemporary as well as historical documents in this digital walking tour. However, I think it could also be used in a variety of other ways. So StoryMapJS lets you make these maps, but it also has the option or the ability to have like one large image that you can zoom in on different portions. So this is not my example, but this is an example that is highlighted on the StoryMapJS website. And it is where they have this one large image, this piece of artwork, a triptych, and they have these different kind of pins that are dropped here in points that you then zoom in to learn more about each section. So I find this could potentially be really useful as an online exhibit or in many other ways, but there's some issues or potential barriers to overcome in order to do that. And I'll talk a little bit more about that side of it in a minute. But back to the map example that I was showing. So I could see this being used for student-created projects, but also potentially as teaching tools created by the instructor. If you're trying to give a lesson on something that uses place, this could be something that you make. This could be something that students make individually as part of a research project. There's a lot of different ways that I think it could be used beyond just my one example that I have. So what is great about it? I've used a couple of other mapping tools like this, such as Google Maps, and I find this one to be both really easy and intuitive to use, but also aesthetically and visually interesting. So, you know, this screen that you're seeing kind of here, this is what it looks like on a computer, but it also shows up really well on a mobile device. It allows you, so when you're navigating through here, you can either click the Start Exploring or the Next button. It'll take you from one pin to the next. On a phone, it allows you to just swipe, and it's kind of optimized the images and the text to fit well in the window for mobile, which I think is really good. For this project, it was perfect because it was a walking tour. So students kind of anticipated that people using their tour would be walking along with it, following along on their phone. On this map, you can see kind of the little dotted lines that go from one point to the next. For our project, it was great because it's supposed to be kind of a tour. It's supposed to be like in succession, but there's also the option to turn off those dots so you can just kind of navigate between images, which is also kind of how it's done in here, where they're not like, you know, dotted lines like a map. What else? So let me go to the editing mode. Logged in here. Another thing that I found really great and useful about it. So when you're trying to drop a pin, you can search for a location. Dayton, Ohio. And you can search by. But it also allows you to edit latitude and longitude. So we did a lesson with the students where they went around campus with their smartphone and took pictures of different buildings on campus. And then I showed them how when you download the image in the technical metadata, the latitude and longitude are embedded in there. And so then they were able to just search the latitude and longitude coordinates. It's got the little like instructions in this box of how to enter them. And then it will drop that pin directly where it happened. So if you're doing something where you're maybe a project comparing and contrasting historical and contemporary, using photos from smartphones like that, where the latitude and longitude are already embedded within the metadata, makes that really easy to drop the pin in the right location. I also found the interface, I think as I already mentioned, like really easy to use and pretty intuitive. It works well with several different media types. On the StoryMap Js website, there's a list of the different media types that it works with, but in this example, I've got a YouTube video embedded, and so you can see in kind of a preview how that shows up, which is nice. It works with like YouTube, excuse me, Wikipedia, Vimeo, so several different sharing options. What is not so great? I mentioned before that we did this Dayton one as a collaborative project, so it was one map that all the students edited. StoryMap Js uses a Google login. So the way I did this was I created a generic Google account that I had a Google email that I gave the students access to, and then they would all log in to edit the pins. When we did this in class on campus, everything worked great. They were all in Dayton. However, when the pandemic happened and then suddenly the students were in different locations, Google starts to get really suspicious if it sees people logging in from different states, and it will then try to do those additional verification steps. So I would say if it's not necessarily super great as a collaborative editing tool. There's different workarounds you could do, say have each student create their own map, or if you're doing it as a class project, have one student in charge of, say, actually inputting the pin data. The other kind of things that were not great was one of the students pointed out that they wished they could have more images or more text, for example. But the workaround that we came up with was that the editing interface accepts HTML. So it allows you to link out. So one of the students, here just linked out to a Google Drive where they posted, additional figures, additional text. That way they could kind of keep this short and sweet on the main pin, but people who wanted to learn more could kind of do that easily. The other kind of thing that's not so great about it is, again, this example with the large image. It requires a little bit more technical skill to be able to do. You have to have images hosted on a web server, and they have to be high quality images. It can't be things taken with your phone. So this is something that I haven't done yet. I've read on the instructions. I think it's, fairly straightforward, but just a warning that this side of doing things is a little bit more involved than just using the map that's already kind of preloaded in StoryMap. And then finally, what benefits and/or limitations does the tool have in terms of accessibility or digital divide concerns? So I used it with undergrad students, so I found that most of them were pretty familiar already with this editing interface if they've done any sort of web editing before. You can add HTML tags, but you don't have to know them. you're using this with different audiences, or if you yourself are maybe not as familiar with this type of editing, there is a little bit of a learning curve, but you can also make really nice looking things without having any of those skills. So, yeah, I will share a link to a document that has these notes as well as my contact info. And if there's anything I can help answer, I would be happy to try to do so. Thanks.